And what could be more simple and delicious than cheese and chutney on oaty biscuits? And to make this delicious chutney, I'm using one of Yorkshire's most famous food exports, the rhubarb. So I've got 2 shallots. Just gonna give them a little chop up. Ooh, it's a bit chilly today. So I've got a pan heating there, and I'm just gonna start sweating them off with a little knob of butter until they start to soften. Right, now to add a bit of flavour to our chutney. Go for a nice knob of ginger. Right, so I'm just gonna slice it up. So I've got about a tablespoon here, which will give a nice aromatic kick to our chutney, and that goes straight in with the shallot. So these have been cooking now for a couple of minutes. They're nice and soft.
Add 50 millilitres of cider vinegar and 200 grams of soft brown sugar.
Now for the rhubarb. So I've got 500 grams of beautiful Yorkshire rhubarb. I'm just gonna chop this up.
It's said that 90% of the world's winter supply of forced rhubarb used to be grown in an area not far from York called the Rhubarb Triangle. Love it or loathe it, old-fashioned or not, I love it.
Now, rhubarb works really well in chutney because it's kind of got that kind of tart, astringent flavour. And when you add that to sugar and vinegar, it goes delicious. Chuck that in. Right, now this would be enough to make a delicious chutney, but because it's flipping freezing, I want to give it a real kick. I'm going to add some chilli.
Roughly chop half and chuck it in.
And now we just want to simmer this chutney for about 30 minutes until it's syrupy, soft and delicious.
Just long enough for me to make some oat biscuits. I need 300 grams of plain white flour. Obviously at this stage, if it's windy, this mixture is quite volatile.
Now add 2 tablespoons of golden caster sugar for a bit of sweetness. So the biscuit's not too heavy, I'm adding half a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of smoked sea salt.
That's going to lend these kind of warm, earthy smokiness. By heck, it's Parky.
Next add 125 grams of oats and 100 grams of soft cubed butter.
Time to roll the sleeves up. Get stuck in.
Rub in the ingredients until they resemble fine breadcrumbs. Then add 150 millilitres of milk.
This makes quite a soft dough. That's good because it'd be lovely, moist and delicious biscuits.
Mix well for a couple of minutes.
Right, there we are. I've got dough.
Time to get rolling.
Need to roll it out really thin, about 2 millimetres thick.
In homage to the famous rhubarb triangle of Yorkshire, there really is only one shape to make my biscuits.
Zig. Zag. Triangle. Easy. Into a hot pan. They'll take about 2 or 3 minutes on each side so they're golden. Then they'll be baked.
If you're using a non-stick pan, there's no need for any oil.
It's easy peasy, totally simple. Talking of which, Henry, do you mind chopping the cheese up for me?
Yeah, no worries. Right, before I chop up the cheese, just have a look at this chutney. It's lovely, thick and syrupy. It smells amazing. Right. And obviously, being in Yorkshire, we're using Wensleydale.
You could use other crumbly cheese, but we want to keep it local. Wensleydale has been made in Yorkshire for hundreds of years. It would be rude to use anything else.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, it's kind of mild, it's really creamy, but it's kind of got that hint of mature. Right, so just finish these off. It's so easy. A little bit of cheese on top, lovely bit of chutney. And now for the complicated bit. You've got to pick it up and eat it. Simple, yet delicious.
To save this recipe and lots of others to your own online scrapbook, go to channel4.com/Bakerbrothers.
Fundamentally, Yorkshire puddings are really easy to make, and there is no excuse not to make your own. 2 eggs, and just give them a little whisk.
Here's a great tip for perfect batter. If your ingredients are at room temperature, you'll get the lightest, fluffiest Yorkshires.
So I'm going to go in with 200 mils of milk. Into that, I'm just going to do a zest of an orange. And that's just going to really give some fragrance to our Yorkshire pudding.
As for making a sweet Yorkshire, add the seeds of a vanilla pod and 2 tablespoons of golden caster sugar.
And give it a whisk. And we're going to go for about 4 tablespoons of flour. So just 1 tablespoon at a time. Add it in, whiskey, until you've got the consistency of double cream. It's thickening up nicely, but there's no lumps. Easy peasy.
While Henry's batter rests for 20 minutes, I'm going to make the sweet apple filling. Russets are a great choice as they'll retain a bit of crunch when they're cooked. Once they're peeled, core and cut into chunks. Time to caramelise these beauties.
Good knob of butter in a pan. And a tablespoon of caster sugar. Then into the pan. on a low heat. Let's give that a stir.
Let them heat through for about 10 minutes until they're golden and gloriously juicy.
Henry, your apples are ready.
Thanks, Tom. So I've got a jumbo muffin tin, and what I've done is I've generously rubbed it with butter and sprinkled it with sugar. Now, when we bake our Yorkshire puddings, that's going to give it a delicious kind of caramelly crust on the outside. But before we put the Yorkshire pudding mix into it, we're just going to divide our apples into the bottom. They look nice, Thomas.
Now, put this lot into a very hot oven, about 230 degrees.
Just for about 3 minutes.
What you'll discover is a sticky apple deliciousness. Time for the batter.
Tom, can you come help? So we've just got to pour them in while keeping it really hot, about halfway up the tin. Look at that. Good, doesn't it? And then straight back into the oven, about 10 to 12 minutes until they're beautiful and light.
Now for my favourite part of this recipe.
Time to bring on the hot toffee sauce. 50 grams of butter. Just let that melt down. So we're going to add to it 50 grams, or 2 tablespoons, of golden caster sugar. And 50 grams of light muscovado sugar. And this is going to give it a real wonderful caramelly depth of flavour. And you've got to be really careful to see that it doesn't burn. But what I am looking for is for the sugar crystals to dissolve. When it's done that, it's time to add the double cream. Straight in there. We have ourselves hot toffee sauce.
Whoa, look at these. This is perfect. Oh, they smell amazing. Tom, can you get a plate?
Yep.
Just going to carefully lift one out.
Oh, boy.
Look at that. And then just to finish it off, a spoon of vanilla icing on the top. Beautiful.
Now this is to really finish it off, Henry. Hot toffee sauce.
To find out how to make these lovelies and more about all our other recipes, go to channel4.com/Bakerbrothers.
Now, you can't tell me that is not going to sell like hotcakes.
That's one beautiful Yorkshire pudding.
Amazing.
It's light and it's fluffy. Wow.
It's sweet, it's creamy.
Sensational.
Lush.
Good work.
We've come up with a real cracker. A spicy lamb kebab with a fiery salad, all wrapped up in a fragrant Indian-style bread.
So this is our shoulder here, and this is the bit we want. That's the neck fillet down there. So to get that, I'm just going to carefully, with a sharp knife, try not to chop the fingers off. I'm just going to peel it away from the bone.
As a tribute to the old butchers of the shambles, I'm going to show you how to extract the best part of the lamb for this dish.
Now look, so now we've got our shoulder. So this is your classic Sunday slow roasting joint. The bit that we want is this beautiful neck fillet down there.
This part of the beast is full of flavour and has just the right amount of fat so it won't dry out when cooked.
So there we go, one beautiful lamb neck fillet, perfect for our gunpowder lamb.
And to go with Henry's explosive lamb, I'm going to make roti packed full of fireworks, my very own special gunpowder mix. First of all, I need 300 grams of self-raising flour weighed into a bowl. And because this bread's made with self-raising flour, there's no first or second rise. It's just straight into the frying pan. Perfect for a busy cafe.
For my explosive seasoning, you need a pinch of sea salt, a big pinch of dried chilli, a pinch of cumin, 2 pinches of black onion seeds, a tablespoon of rapeseed oil, and 150 millilitres of warm water.
Right, and once it's all mixed together and you've got your dough, it's time to tip it out onto the table and knead it till it gets lovely and stretchy.
Don't worry if it's a bit wet to start.
Keep working it for about 10 minutes, and when your dough is soft like this and lovely and elastic, you're ready to make it into roti.
While Tom finishes off his bit of the recipe,
I'm going to make this delicious, spicy, fiery rub. I'm going to add some cassia bark. Basically, it's the outside bark of a cinnamon tree. It's got a much more kind of earthier flavour, works really well with lamb. Now, you can get this from most Indian stores. We're just going to break it in and give it a bash.
then add a pinch of coriander seeds, a good pinch of dried chili, cumin. Now add a teaspoon of turmeric. And finish with salt and pepper. This might look complicated, but Richard and Fiona could make a big batch and keep it for months in the larder.
Right, to that, I'm going to add a little bit of ginger. Not going to bother peeling it, I'm just going to chop it up a little bit. Chuck it in there. And then a couple of cloves of garlic. Same again, don't bother chopping them. And just grind them in.
Add to that a good glug of vegetable oil.
Mix it together. And literally, just rub it on the outside. Be generous. So ideally, you could do this the day before, so all the flavours really marinate in. But actually, to be honest, it doesn't really matter if you're in a hurry. So it's all rubbed into the lamb. It looks and smells amazing. Right, so I've got a hot griddle pan. I'm just going to go straight on there. Because there's some oil on the rub, we don't need to oil the pan. So don't be tempted to fiddle with it. Just leave it for a couple of minutes. You want to get loads of caramelisation and the delicious, spicy crust.
Cook for 3 to 4 minutes on both sides. Meanwhile, I'm going to make my salad.
So with this dish, you've got beautiful spiced lamb, you've got Tom's spicy fire bread. To go with it, you want like a nice, fresh salad. So this is great, full of flavour.
Grate 4 carrots and thinly slice 1 red onion.
There's nothing worse than a kind of big chunk of raw red onion. I'm going to add some of these flame-roasted peppers.
They'll add a delicious smoky flavour to the mix.
And to give it a rocket, a bit of green chilli. Just dice it up nice and small. Don't want too much, and just stop before you hit the seeds.
Unless, of course, you really want to add some heat to the dish. Then add a rough chop of coriander.
You need a bit of seasoning, get a pinch of salt and pepper. And then to really bring the thing alive, I've got some mustard seeds, and I'm going to fry them in some oil. Right, and you want your pan to be really hot, because what happens is they'll all start hopping all over the place. You just want to keep shaking it around until they start popping, a bit like popcorn. And what that does is it just explodes them and releases their flavour. And just be nice and careful, just pour them into your salad. There you go.
If, like me, you're too impatient to let it cool, make sure you toss the salad with care.
And look at that beautiful bonfire of a salad. It's going to be perfect. The lamb's ready, look at that. I'm just going to rest this on a plate for about 3 to 4 minutes before we slice it up. Marvellous.
Time for me to show you how quick and easy cooking roti is. I've rolled them out beautifully wafer thin.
You need to heat about 2 centimetres of oil in a frying pan.
Wow, look how they bubble up in that hot oil. This really is quick bread.
Once it starts to brown, flip it over and give it a few more seconds.
I'm just going to drain this on some kitchen paper.
Lovely. Now my lamb has been resting nicely. I'm just going to slice it up lovely and thin. Look at that. Beautiful crust on the outside and just nice and medium on the inside. Right, so let's build this up. So I've got the roti or the fire bread as my plate. Let's get some of this delicious salad. Just put some on there. Look at all those lovely colours. And some of this beautiful lamb, just spread it on top. So I've got some yoghurt. That's just going to freshen the whole thing up. Just a little drizzle over the top.
This fiery wrap is quick, easy, and the perfect alternative to any sandwich.
Look at that.
Welcome to York.
Put some fire in your belly.
That is wild.
That's so good. It's like fresh, but it's got so much like kick to it. It's absolutely delicious.
It's like the most bonkersly good kebab you could ever eat.
To learn more about our recipes and others from us, go to channel4.com/Bakerbrothers.
Ah, the Vikings! Not only did they invade our country and pillage our villages and rob us of all of our possessions, but, on the plus side, they inspired our next recipe. I give you Viking flatbreads. It starts with a teaspoon of dried yeast into 260 ml of warm water.
While the yeast dissolves, weigh out 500 grams of wholemeal spelt flour. Spelt flour is an ancient crop that has been harvested for centuries. It has a lovely nutty flavour and is a great alternative to the usual stuff.
This is real Viking flour. I season it with some sea salt, and this will bring out the wonderful nutty flavour in the spelt flour. And to keep this dough soft and delicious so it rolls out easily to make flatbreads, good big glug of rapeseed oil. It's a great alternative to olive oil, and it's produced in this country.
add your water and yeast to the mix.
Okay, once all the dry ingredients come together, and just tip them out onto the table and get kneading. And this is a great workout for your arms. Oof. So when you've been doing that for 15 minutes and your dough's really lovely and stretchy and elastic, it's time to add the nuts.
150 grams of smashed up hazelnuts.
And that's going to give these flatbreads delicious nutty flavour and some real texture.
Once the nuts are all mixed in, put your dough somewhere warm for 1 hour to rise.
So I'm ready to make this into 8 little flatbreads. They smell even better now they've had an hour resting, all those flavours melding together in a warm vapour of delicious nuttiness. Right, now to make these round, keep pushing down with your palms, cupping, spinning around into your fingers until you've got 2 pert little dough balls like that with knots underneath to hold it all together. That's going to make a good flatbread.
Drizzle your balls with rapeseed oil and leave to rest for a couple of minutes.
Tom, I genuinely think this is a really cool vegetarian recipe, and for once, I'm actually happy to help.
Well, if you're going to help, Henry, you'll need 2 onions.
Thanks, Thomas. And to go with Tom's beautiful Viking flatbread, I'm going to make him a lovely topping. So we're just going to slice up a couple of red onions, nice and thin. I'm just going to cook them in some rapeseed oil. And we're just going to cook them now nice and slowly for about 10-15 minutes until they get lovely and sweet. A little bit of caramelisation and just nicely sweated. Pinch of salt and pepper in there.
Along with a good grating of nutmeg.
Right, so let that cook down for about 10-15 minutes until they're lovely and coloured. So these, as you can see, have cooked down nicely. They're beautiful, sweet. There's a little bit of caramelisation on there. They look great. Now I'm just going to finish them off with a bit of sorrel. Sorrel is a beautiful leaf. It's a bit like spinach, but it's so much nicer.
This lovely green has a citrusy, lemony flavour. The wild variety would have been picked and eaten by the Vikings.
And then off the heat, I'm just going to stir it through. And that's just going to wilt it down, but it's not going to overcook it. Look how beautiful it is. I must say, as vegetarian cooking goes, that's not bad. There you go, Tom. There are your onions.
Great. Good. Well, everything's almost ready. It's really important you've got your oven as hot as possible.
Next, I'm making some marjoram oil. Take 1 garlic clove, the leaves from a small bunch of marjoram, and a good pinch of sea salt.
And smash it all together. It's quite a physical Viking-type recipe, this.
Marjoram will add a wonderful, fragrant flavour to the dish.
Smells amazing.
Finish with a good glug of rapeseed oil. Now time to roll out your flatbreads.
And because they're nice and oily, they're really easy to roll out, nice and flat, about the size of a small plate. Now to build this flatbread. Handful of flour to stop them sticking. Bit of the marjoram oil. Then good heaped tablespoon of this.
Lastly, a good helping of delicious, light and fresh curd cheese.
And not only does that smell great, but that looks absolutely beautiful.
Fire up your oven as high as it'll go.
That'll just be, don't know, 2-3 minutes. Ooh.
Beautiful.
Bit more oil on top. Doesn't that look and smell amazing?
That does smell absolutely gorgeous.
What are we doing with that massive axe?
Well, I thought there's only one way to chop it, Viking style. There we go, Thomas. What a good sorrel. That's so good. And the nuts alone, they're great.
And having this on like a wholemeal spelt base makes the whole thing really kind of hearty.
And that kind of like punchy, garlicky marjoram oil just lifts the whole thing. Those Vikings ate so well.
History has never tasted so good.
To learn more about this very Viking recipe and more, go to channel4.com/Bakerbrothers.